welcome back. You're watching the Late Night News. Well, the Election Commission is cracking the whip in Chennai and are keeping a close check on illegal transfer of funds. The Sadapet flying squad of the Election Commission conducted surprise checks today on the Gandhi Mandapam Road in Kotturpuram. Earlier, such surprise checks were conducted in some of the slums of Kotturpuram by the same squad. Well, Chennai Suburban Commissioner of Police S.R. Jangeth has been transferred and replaced by Karan Sinha, who assumed office today. This after a mass transfer was ordered by the Election Commission during the weekend. Mr. Bolanath has also been ordered to replace the first woman DGP of Tamil Nadu, Ms. Latika Saran. Apart from them, the district collectors of Erode, Theni, Madurai and Tiruvallur and 7 senior IPS officers were also shifted. Moving on to some national news now. Well, the Congress and the Trinamool have agreed on a seat-sharing formula for the upcoming assembly polls in West Bengal. The Congress will get 65 seats in the deal with Mamta. The Trinamool chief is also likely to change 4 seats in favour of the Congress. Top leaders of the Congress met in New Delhi today to discuss the deadlock. Senior Congress leader Pranab Mukherjee also met Sonia Gandhi and is said to have discussed the issue with her. The party president is reportedly strongly in favour of the alliance. Mamta's election manifesto promises electricity and water for all villages in 5 years. And moving on to the latest news from Libya, where loud explosions and anti-aircraft guns shattered the Tripoli night sky. Coalition forces bombed targets belonging to Colonel Gaddafi. And according to reports, Gaddafi's residence in South Tripoli has been heavily damaged. But the critical development now is that the Arab League has questioned the aggression of the UN-backed military intervention. There seems to be a diplomatic setback when the Arab League chief said that the aim of imposing a no-fly zone was primarily for the protection of civilians and not the bombardment of more civilians.
Anti-aircraft fire shook the Libyan capital Tripoli on Sunday night, and tracer fire arched into the air on the second night of Allied strikes. Smoke was seen rising not far from Gaddafi's compound. The Pentagon denied that Colonel Gaddafi's residence was being targeted.
We're not going after Gaddafi.
Earlier in the day, 15 French fighter jets flew over Libyan skies but didn't strike because they saw no threat to civilians. The French Defense Ministry spokesperson said the mission was successful because the Benghazi population felt the pressure coming off.
Act and protect. This
How would that translate?
That's very simple. Protect the civilian. I will not comment on what we will do. This will depend on what is necessary. But the only target will be to protect the civilian population.
The conclusion of the meeting here in Paris was that the international coalition was going to make a long-term commitment to the Libyan people. The coalition would protect the people from Gaddafi's forces and also help them build the country. But if Gaddafi's forces do not go on the offensive and stay silent, the question is, for how long will this vigil carry on and what will happen next?
For now, the massive US strikes with 124 cruise missiles were declared effective in crippling the regime's capability, and Gaddafi issued ceasefire orders to all military forces.
The armed forces has issued its command to all military units in Libya to safeguard the immediate ceasefire everywhere in Libya, starting from 9 o'clock this evening, Sunday.
This is the second time Tripoli has announced a ceasefire. It was breached the first time round. Coalition forces confirmed that Sunday saw no new air activity by the regime. But trouble could be brewing in the Allied forces as an emergency meeting of the Arab League has now been called. The 21-country bloc had backed the no-fly zone but is now worried about civilian deaths from missile attacks.
هذا يختلف عن الهدف. احنا عايزين حماية المدنيين وليس قصف مدنيين إضافيين. طبعا ده واضح جدا.
The US military, however, have said that they have no reports of any civilian casualties. With Nupur Tiwari in Paris, Kajori Sen for NDTV.
In condemning the airstrikes on Libya, Foreign Minister S.M. Krishna says India regrets the airstrikes by the coalition forces and the airstrikes are sure to harm innocent civilians. India, along with Arab League, China and Russia, have criticized the airstrikes by the Western allies.
We view with grave concern the ongoing violence, strife and deteriorating humanitarian situation. We regret the airstrikes that are taking place. I'm sure the airstrikes will lead to harm to innocent civilians, foreign nationals, diplomatic missions, and their personnel in Libya. India calls upon all parties to abjure violence and the use of threat and force to resolve the differences.
Well, the war in Libya has had its impact on oil prices. The price of crude oil jumped by more than $2, shooting up the Brent price of a barrel of crude to $216. The internal war in Libya and now air attacks by coalition forces has nearly paralyzed crude exports. Libya has 2% of the world's oil reserves and most of its exports are to Europe. And moving on to news from Japan now, while efforts are to cool 2 reactors at the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear complex are still on, yesterday pressure unexpectedly rose in a third unit's reactor, meaning plant operators may need to deliberately release radioactive steam. That has only added to anxiety over radiation leaks. Even as we speak, Japan's military is dousing the complex's troubled Unit 4. In a small advance, the plant's operator declared Units 5 and 6 the least troublesome, under control after their nuclear fuel storage pools cooled to safe levels. The IAEA has said that despite some positive developments, the overall situation at the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant remains very serious. Let's now take a quick look at how gold and silver traded today. Here are the closing rates. Still ahead on the bulletin, how do you make voters listen to you when every political party is canvassing for its candidate? It's inspiration Collywood to make their campaign a chartbuster.